Hey guys, what is up? This is Yannis, and the video you're about to watch is an interview I did with a really good friend of mine, Ilias Grammatikakis. He's a pharmacist, and basically I asked him some questions regarding fasting, intermittent fasting, prolonged fasting, and also we discussed little things about stoicism and of course morning routines. Alright, so check the video. I know it's a lot of information, so I made sure that I have some timestamps below in the description of the video. So if you want, just go there, scroll down and see what you would like exactly to learn and check it out. Alright? Hey guys, what is up? This is Yannis, and today we have here with us Ilias Grammatikakis. He's a really good friend of mine. He's a pharmacist and also a herbal scientist. We're going to have a really good conversation about the benefits of prolonged fasting. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome you, Ilias.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, just who are you and, why have you decided to name yourself herbal scientist?
So I studied pharmacy in England, and since I was 18, so for the last decade, I gave out my age here. I started looking into herbalism. I did my bachelor's thesis on herbal supplements in England, and I was very interested on how plants can be used medicinally. So I wanted to start a website to share my knowledge. And then I became a herbal scientist. I was looking for a name that wouldn't be too hippie. I want to put the science into the herbalism. So on my website, all the articles are referenced with either academic studies or in general institutional references. So the website started about 2 years ago. And I'm continuing with the website and through public speaking as well to spread knowledge about herbs and optimal health.
That's really nice. And to be honest, when I first was introduced to your blog from Facebook, I was really, amazed from the fact that you are actually, adding references, because most of the people just, discuss about things without actually putting any scientific background to that. So that's exactly why I want to have this discussion with you before I go toward this journey of prolonged fasting. Basically, I decided, as a way for me to expand myself and to challenge myself as well, and to live a little bit like a stoic, because I love stoicism and I think you love it as well.
Yes.
I wanted to do this 3-day fasting, 3 days where I'm going to do nothing else other than drinking water. So my first question to you is, what happens to our body when we fast?
So for a start, I'm not an expert on fasting, but I do have some experience, and I've read a tremendous amount of it because I see a lot of medical potential in fasting. I mean, there is research being done now. Long story short, things that can happen when you fast, and we mean in general water fasting or following protocols like the fast mimicking diet, which we can expand later on. What happens to your body through those types of fasting is essentially, obviously you're going to lose some weight, but that is not the key goal all the time. What happens is insulin decreases, so your insulin sensitivity increases, so your body responds better to carbohydrates and sugars. The hormone called leptin increases, which is a appetite decreasing hormone, so you can control your hunger better. Also, you have a higher cognitive state for most people. That's not 100%, but in general, once you adapt and you're not at the first couple of days where you may be feeling a bit hazy because your body is switching from glucose to fats, maybe entering ketosis. After you go through that, you generally have a higher mental clarity. And also, I believe it's a very good mental exercise because we are tethered to it. We are all day bombarded with adverts about foods and snack, and they're everywhere. Like you go down, even in England, I mean, even pharmacies have snacks along the way to the till. All the time you have like this tremendous influx of food from around you. So I believe it's a great mental exercise to be around those things and not respond to the stimulus as much. So that's the very short story of what happens.
Okay, that's great. A question I have is regarding the difference between, like, I read some stuff online, but I'm not quite sure. And what exactly happens in terms of, the glucose that got, in the beginning our body or our brain is being fed with glucose, but then it changes into ketones.
Yeah.
And what is ketosis actually?
So what happens is we are generally in a mode of glycolysis where we use glucose that we get from our food, like carbohydrates mainly, and also sugars, which are carbs. And then through glycolysis, we convert glycogen into energy. What happens in ketosis is we convert fat into energy through the ketone bodies. So you're switching essentially from a state of using glucose as energy to a state where you're using fat as energy. That does not only increase fat loss because you're using your fats stored in your body and the fats through your diet for energy, but there has been a vast amount of research now suggesting that it could be used therapeutically. For example, ketone bodies can be used and ketogenic diets can be used for epilepsy treatment and also in certain types of cancer, although that's not very conclusive yet because there is research that shows that certain types of cancer can adapt and use ketone bodies because in general it's widely acknowledged that cancerous cells use glucose as fuel to multiply. So ketosis can be used therapeutically, but it's very important to ensure that you are within range. I mean, therapeutic ketosis is could start from 0.5 millimoles per liter of ketones, which you can check through urine sticks or specific blood sticks, up to some levels considered therapeutic could be 2 to 4 millimoles per liter. If you are below that, it may not be actually ketosis. If you're above that, you may actually feel exhausted because you're way too high on ketones than you should be for the therapeutic purpose. So you need very close monitoring once you're trying it. And more details on that on ketosis are very well described by two scientists that I follow a lot, Dr. Peter Attia and Dr. Dominic D'Agostino. If you Google those two people, you'll find extreme details on how we can enter ketosis and how we can use ketosis therapeutically.
All right. Another thing that came to my mind before, you mentioned about having, a mental clarity. It's at least, to some people. And I've been doing intermittent fasting, which is doing like the 16 to 8 hours window. And you fast for 16 hours and then you have a window of 8 hours to eat. And still, doing this intermittent fasting, I had this mental clarity. But why? Like, you're not eating food, so which means that you don't have the energy. Like, doesn't this has to be correlated with your mind somehow? How does fasting affect your brain? I mean,
yeah. I mean, again, it's not my area of expertise, but what I've researched so far and from my personal experience, it seems to be several factors. One is because you have increased leptin, you control your hunger better. So you're not in that mental state of looking out for food all the time once you've practiced either intermittent fasting or you're going through an actual water fast or fast mimicking diet. You learn to adapt to not eating. So your body starts getting used to not eating constantly because we're being told that especially if you want to be fit, you have to eat like 6-7 meals a day. And that can help in some cases with metabolism, like a lot of nutritionists support that. But then you get into a state where if you miss that meal, your body is used to having meals at certain times, and then you're looking out for it. So that's, I think the mental state is one thing, and the leptin sensitivity. The other thing is when you do prolonged fasting, your insulin sensitivity is increased. So your body responds better to carbohydrates and sugars, which means that even if you have a meal which is richer in carbohydrates, your body will respond better to it, so you wouldn't feel sluggish and tired after like the usual carb loading that you feel like you need to take a nap after you have a plate of pasta or something like that. Your body responds better to it, therefore you have more sustained energy, and your body doesn't have sugar spikes and insulin spikes, therefore glucose spikes and insulin spikes all the time. It's more like a more mellow line throughout the day.
All right. Yeah.
And also the ketone bodies, if you actually enter ketosis, because that requires a specific diet, not just intermittent fasting, the ketone bodies can boost mental clarity from what we see so far.
Oh, all right. Cool. Okay, now back to prolonged fasting. So let's say we are on, those days when I'm doing this fasting. I start, let's say, at the 16 first hours or after 24 hours. That's the window of me going into ketosis, approximately, or something. And then what's happening? Like, I heard about another term which is called autophagy. So can you say more things about that as well?
So what autophagy is essentially a natural process that we have, which is like our body's recycling mode, where membranes are formed around damaged or dead cells, and then they are broken apart and eliminated from the body. Also, that could be used for some damaged proteins. Autophagy is triggered through prolonged fasting. Therefore, if you have a lot of damaged cells, which we all do because you're living in a stressful environment, a lot of your cells get damaged through the food that we're eating, sometimes toxic. Also, we all have cancerous cells in our body, but our natural defense destroys them. So if we boost autophagy, you essentially decrease the waste in your body, the damaged cells and damaged proteins that you don't want to have there. It's a natural process, but it can be boosted with intermittent fasting and also prolonged fasting. But to enter ketosis, it could require a few days for some people because it's also diet related. So you can do intermittent fasting, but then you need to eat a very low carbohydrate and very high fat, usually around 70 to 80% fat diet in order to achieve ketosis. And it's better if you do it while having a ketone meter so that you can ensure that you're within that state. But if you're water fasting, it could happen within the first 2 to 3 days of your water fast that your body will switch from glucose to ketones.
Okay, all right. This also makes sense, I think. Okay, what would you suggest me do during those 3 days so that, I won't faint, or if there are any dangers to at least, try to diminish those dangers? And, like you told me sometime to add something on my water, or can you give me more advice on that, please?
Yeah, the general thing is that most people will feel a bit queasy because of electrolyte imbalance. So an advice that I recommend and is usually recommended is adding some salt to your water, like not during the whole day, but it could be useful a bit in the morning when you wake up and you go in the morning to the toilet and then essentially lose electrolytes after 8 hours. I'm hoping that you're getting some sleep. And also in the evening, because you've been out all day, your body uses water to regulate the temperature, especially if you're in Greece right now, where it's hotter. You need a lot more electrolytes and water to maintain your temperature for your body's homeostasis. So adding salt to the water is one thing. Generally being well hydrated is the other thing, because you will probably need to drink a lot more water than usually, because you also on a day-to-day basis get water through your food. when you're eating especially fruit, but also vegetables, they contain some amount of water, especially fruits like watermelon or tomatoes, which is also a fruit. They have a vast amount of water in them. When you eliminate that, your body will naturally lose some liquid. So you need a large amount of water to maintain liquids in your body, because I mean, you're mostly water, you're mostly made out of water. So you need to replace that. And the other thing that I speak from experience is make sure you get adequate sleep. Like during those 3 days, don't pull an all-nighter. It's not a wise choice, because your body is already going through a stress trying to adapt to having no food. So if you sleep deprive it as well, it's going to increase cortisol and it's going to trigger not only a lot of hunger on the next day, but you're going to feel very tired and possibly, like I did, very irritable. You're not going to respond well to other people who are fed around you. And it's also good if you combine it with low stress days. Like, make sure that you're in a controlled environment those days, that you're not all day out on the street, because you never know whether you'll feel weakness or the stimuli will be too many and then you'll feel like you need to eat. You can practice some meditation so you reduce your cortisol and you feel calmer, and then it can help you go forward, move on with it. I think these are the 3 things, like control stress, sleep, and a lot of water, some with salt.
Okay, makes sense. Another one is about, like, in terms of liquids now, water with salt is a great one. Now, I'll be honest with you, and you know as well, and I'm pretty sure you're also a fan, I love coffee.
Yeah.
But I also heard that you shouldn't drink too much coffee, and you should mostly be focused on drinking tea. Is that true, or it's a myth?
There are various opinions on whether drinking any kind of liquid other than water would affect the benefits of the water fast, because still anything that you put through your body is causing some sort of response. So whether that's a herbal tea or coffee, it's gonna trigger a response. Like, there are medicinal teas that will make your body react a certain way. So there are the purists that want just a 3-day water fast, but an easier way to do it is by consuming some herbal teas, which are also having medicinal properties and also are not caffeinated, because one thing is that you may have higher cortisol levels, the stress hormone, because of the body's adaptation. So you don't want to have too much coffee and then boost that cortisol level too high. And also, coffee is a diuretic, so you don't want to be losing too many electrolytes while you're already not getting enough of them. So yeah, it's good to limit the amount, and then you can have medicinal teas like hibiscus, or you can have like teas from medicinal mushrooms like reishi tea, which is also an adaptogen and boosts the immune system and in general homeostasis. So it can help you get through with the stress of it as well, without giving you any jitters and without actually, you're not consuming any calories, so it's not breaking your fast.
All right. But I can drink yerba mate, for example, or that can be also dangerous.
I suppose you could, but it's also a very, very stimulant thing. So I would keep it to maybe very little amount a day.
All right. So I'll go with the tea.
Again, I'm not I'm not into research into any institute, so I'm not an authority on this. But that's what the research shows so far, that avoiding too many stimulants while you're doing it is wise, because you don't want to keep cortisol too high.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Because I need to start, slowly diminishing my coffee cups, because I go too high on some days.
It's part of the Greek culture.
It's
in our DNA.
That's true. All right, cool. I don't have any more questions regarding prolonged fasting, but I would love to learn about your experience with another kind of fasting that you mentioned in the beginning, which is...
the fast mimicking diet.
What's that?
It's essentially a 5-day diet protocol invented by Dr. Walter Longo and his team. So you can Google Longo for more details. But essentially what they try to do at his institution is try to reap the benefits of prolonged water fasting without actually water fasting, with having some amount of food, because for most people having a 3 to 5 day water fast is a tremendous challenge, especially if that person is not as young as us or has other comorbidities, they have other illnesses, and of course if they have a very bad past of eating habits, it's hard to switch them within a few days to have to go to a water fast. So they did some research, and there's also a book called The Longevity Diet published by Dr. Walter Longo. And they developed a 5-day protocol where essentially, long story short, you're having 1,100 calories the first day, and then 800 calories for the 4 remaining days. And the macros are essentially 45% carbohydrates, 45% fats, and 10% protein. They do actually have a specific set of meals that you can buy, which is called Prolon. But because this is developed in US and it would take quite a long wait for me to get it, and also it would be much more costly to get it from there, I adjusted it. So I didn't do the Prolon diet, but I did it based on the book and the general advice of Dr. Walter Longo. So essentially you can consume a lot of vegetables, which are mainly carbohydrates, but say like broccoli, cauliflower, etc. Some fats like olive oil, olives, avocado, etc. And then some protein mainly through nuts. So you're accidentally vegan also during those days. That's what at least they have done with their meals as well. You're not consuming animal products for these 5 days. And then on the 6th day, you're just easing back to your regular diet because you don't want to go back to full-blown eating 3,000 calories and having like an enormous amount of food or alcohol after those days, so that you don't disturb your digestive tract. So I did that mainly because I have an autoimmune disease. I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis since I was 11 years old. So I've been focusing a lot on autoimmune diseases and how we can either slow the progress of them or even reverse some, because I'm not happy with just being served the diagnosis and being told to live with it. I have read various cases of people getting off thyroid medication or getting better with their other symptoms, because hypothyroidism of Hashimoto's generally comes with some fatigue, some cold and heat intolerance, etc., and some weight gain. So I did it to see if it would cause any changes to my day-to-day life, and also because I had some very strong muscle pain during those days, which could have been psychosomatic. So I wanted to see how that would affect me. Major outcome was I lost a massive amount of weight. I think I lost about 3.5 or 4 kilos. I actually have the measurements somewhere in my phone. My blood glucose dropped from 97, it was pretty controlled but a bit higher before, to 80 on the 5th day, which is much more acceptable for a guy in my age that is not pre-diabetic. And the other thing is that I believe it was a tremendous mental challenge, because if you're eating 800 calories of vegetables, it's still a good amount of food, but it's not the usual amount that you would be having throughout the day, especially if you're a guy my size, which is 183, generally around 94 kilos. I work out, so it was a very small amount compared to what I'm used to eat. So it was a great challenge, and I felt a bit tired during the 2nd day mainly, but could have been the sleep deprivation as well, because I didn't plan to sleep longer than I should have. So through the fourth and fifth day, though, I felt like I had a lot of energy and I could actually postpone my meals. Like I didn't need to eat on a certain time, even though it was generally recommended to eat 3 times a day during that protocol. And I believe overall the major outcome was that I felt, and their studies show as well, that even when you stop the 5-day protocol, the benefits remain, and those benefits are essentially a resetting of your immunity and in general of your body's mechanism. So you boost autophagy. Obviously, I cannot feel whether autophagy is going on in my body right now, so it would be placebo effect if I said that it boosted my autophagy. I don't know that. I cannot perform tests on myself. But what it definitely did for me is it increased my energy, because essentially it's a tremendous detox for your body. And because it resets your system through that shock, I feel like I now sleep better. It's been 2 weeks since I finished it. So I feel like I sleep better, I have more energy, and also it changes your mindset towards food like intermittent fasting does. So I like it very much when I have control over when to eat, because I don't like to eat something because it's in front of me. I like to eat something because I want to eat something. So that's the major key, and people can find out more about it by getting the book, The Longevity Diet, or Googling Dr. Walter Longon, watching any of his interviews, because he's the lead scientist and researcher behind that.
All right, I'm gonna have the links for the book and the name of this doctor, because he has a hard name, to be honest. I can't even repeat it. But for sure, I remember when we discussed about that, like, it's definitely challenging. And I like the fact that, sometimes we need to challenge ourselves in order to at least, we do something, like by doing this prolonged fasting or this diet that you did, like those things are things that are like outside of the norm. And many people might, watch this video and be like, okay, why are these guys are talking about not eating food or eating specific amount of food? No, I want to eat anything. But I think that's exactly the trap that we need to go away from, because we shouldn't be slaves of food. We will eat, and of course food is the most important thing of all in order to have a healthy body and mind, but on the same time we shouldn't be slaves of food.
Practice some stoicism.
Exactly. Stoics were talking us about that many years ago.
And I believe this is like slightly off topic, but I think it's very important. I believe especially if like people like us, born in a place and time where there was sort of prosperity in a country and no war, which is good, obviously, but we are kind of a soft generation.
Yeah.
If you were born in Greece in the 90s, you didn't go through war, you didn't go through famine, you probably had like, that's not to generalize. I mean, there were still people that were missing a lot from their lives, but the vast amount of the population was living within normal standards, if not very good standards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've grown soft. We never hunted for our food, all these things. So I'm also not a big fan of hunting, not a fan of hunting at all. But I believe that it's good to have some exercises that toughen you up, like this, or cold showers like the Wim Hof method, or I forgot the name of the exercise, but Ferris was recommending it, like wearing something odd for a few days, so that you learn to not care about what people think when they see you on the street, which for me it's a tremendous challenge, because I've been tethered. I've learned to dress professionally because of the pharmacy. So if people are looking too much on the street, if I'm wearing something weird, I do care, but I should practice not to, because there are more important things to care. So fasting is one of those things, because it was in our nature not to have food available 24/7. Now we have literally markets that never close, and you can buy any kind of food at 3 a.m. in the morning. So it's good to practice not surrendering to those slave, as you mentioned, instincts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's true. So the body can always adapt, right, in prolonged fasting periods.
Yeah, I mean, it's not recommended for everyone to do it because it depends on your health condition before practicing fasting. And I would definitely recommend everyone that does it to be to let the medical professional know about it, because I'm not a doctor, I'm a pharmacist, so I'm not going to tell you what to do. You should consult your physician before trying anything like that. But I happen to be surrounded by doctors because there are some in my family and some of them are friends. So I was in a safe environment when I practiced that because they were aware of this. But I do believe there is potential in it. Actually, it's not a belief. I don't believe it. I read it. It's I do
stronger
see
than belief.
Yeah, it's not a belief. Like, I obviously would prefer to see data that show eating enormously whatever you want to eat would make you healthy, but that's not the data. So I obviously love eating. I mean, if you come from any Mediterranean country, you have so much good food that you would love eating, but having short periods of controlled fasting can have so much medical potential. That's what the research shows so far, and there is a lot of ongoing research, especially in the US, about prolonged fasting and health benefits. So okay. I do believe there is a lot of potential, and I believe that everyone should, at least, if not try it, they should read on it.
And then try on it. All right.
At least educate yourselves, because it's an important topic that no one would generally talk to you about on the street or on the news, because which industry is going to tell you not to have food? Definitely not the food industry, which is a vast amount of advertising on TV and on the streets. So it's not something you hear a lot, but you should definitely read about it a lot, because there is so much than we already know about nutrition. There is so much research going on in nutrition, and turns out that a good part of nutrition is not getting nutrients for a couple of days every now and then.
That's crazy, right?
It sounds counterintuitive, but it's a reset. True. It acts as a reset. Like you have your task manager on your phone, and you eliminate a lot of inactive applications on your phone through apps. That's what your autophagy does to your body. You eliminate inactive cells. You don't need them. And if you can boost that through 3 days of controlled fasting or the 5-day fast mimicking diet, why not try it, once a year, depending on your condition and your background. I do believe that people should do it alongside with the doctor. Like, the doctor should be aware, because it can be dangerous if not done properly. But I do believe that it's a great option to consider, especially if you're already suffering from things. Like, if you're a very healthy, athletic person, no conditions, no mental fatigue, no stress. I don't know if such a person exists with all those credentials. But if you're at that level, maybe it wouldn't affect you that much. But if you have any kind of condition, or you feel like you need to reset your body because you may have mistreated it in the past through long days of or long nights, maybe, of studying and working, or bad food habits, or alcohol, etc., a lot of toxins accumulating, then it's a good reset for your body.
Okay, I really like the one that you said, that exactly as we delete the apps from our phone, it's time, to also delete some bad and not updated cells from ourselves. I have two last questions to ask you. The first one is, since you are the herbal scientist, I would love to hear about some supplements
or some herbs that we should, try to have on our diet, on our nutrition. So what would you recommend in terms of productivity specifically? But if you have something else as well that you would like to recommend, I would love to hear that.
In terms of productivity, the first thing that I would probably recommend that comes to mind is a medicinal mushroom called lion's mane. And now you can find extracts of it even mixed with coffee, like companies like Four Sigmatic, and they don't pay me for this, although they should. Where you can find coffee and a dual extracted lion's mane in a sachet, because it really boosts cognitive function, and it's not a too potent stimulant that would give you the jitters like having too much coffee. So lion's mane would be number one for productivity. Another medicinal mushroom that I love is reishi, also known as Ganoderma lucidum. But reishi mushroom is a general adaptogen. It boosts homeostasis, so it brings your body to its natural state. So it can help with reducing stress, increasing energy, may help you sleep better. So you can get it in either capsule forms, easier on the way, or get the actual powder mushroom and add it into your smoothies or soups. Also, it's good to get some vitamin C with it, like orange or lemon or something, because it helps absorb the polysaccharides from reishi. In terms of productivity, the other thing would definitely be Bacopa monieri, which is a herb that has been shown to boost mental function, and it doesn't generally have any major side effects, and it doesn't cause insomnia or anxiety or anything like that. So it's not a stimulant per se, but it does help with cognitive function. And also, last but not least, a herb that I'm particularly interested in, it would be cannabis, but medicinal cannabis in the sense of getting specific supplements that are made of cannabis for specific purposes. For example, cannabis, for a start, is illegal in many countries, so you should check the legal status in your country before you do that. But say, for example, THC can help with creativity. So it's not the usual image that we always have, that you need to get messed up with cannabis and then you sit on a sofa and eat cakes and stuff. You can get micro doses of cannabis and be a very productive person, because it's been used for thousands of years, and there's a lot of research showing that certain doses can be medicinal. And also there is a substance called cannabidiol in cannabis, which is actually a potent anti-inflammatory. It's not as we wouldn't call it psychoactive in the sense that THC is, so it doesn't give you a high. It definitely affects your nervous system because it's a potent anti-inflammatory, so it would reduce inflammation in the brain, therefore helping your nervous system to relax. But it's definitely not a downer like synthetic drugs that are meant to relax you are, and they generally lower your cognitive capacity at the time. So cannabidiol can help you with dealing with stress, inflammation, which can also affect the brain and the body, and you may feel more tired. It can help you have more relaxed sleep. Dosing can be tricky with cannabinoids because we don't have yet any lab tests where you can check the function of your endocannabinoid system, because we do produce cannabinoids and they're called endocannabinoids, and there are cannabinoids that you can get from plants like cannabis and they're called phytocannabinoids. We cannot yet test how much we need, so you need to start low and titrate. My recommendation would generally be for most people cannabidiol, CBD, because it doesn't really affect your day-to-day tasks, and it can help you so much with dealing with pain, inflammation, stress. And if you need it, and if it's legal in your state, small doses of THC can also help with creativity and relaxation, especially after a long day of work when you need to calm your nervous system. Again, we're not talking about the usual all-in drug stereotype. We're talking about strategic use because cannabis is a plant and should be treated as such. It's not something extraterrestrial that we don't know how to use. It's been used for thousands of years by many civilizations. And there is a lot of research being done in Israel, in Spain, in the US, and in other countries of Europe as well, that it has so much more medical potential than we already know. It's not a heal-all herb, it's not a panacea, but it has a lot of potential. And it can definitely help you with productivity because if you take it consistently and you manage to find the correct dose for you, it will reduce stress. Therefore, you can perform at a higher level. Coffee bean is a plant. The coffee beans come from a plant. So we all know that caffeine helps stimulate your body as long as it's moderate doses and you don't overdo it, because then cortisol is going to go too high, you're not going to sleep well, and all that.
Yeah, that's true. And I know you've been doing a great work in the area of cannabis in Greece, so congrats about that. I'm just looking at your journey there, and I'm super happy knowing you doing all those things. And I have one last question, which is a question that I always like to ask people. And this question is about morning routines. All right. Do you have, first of all, a morning routine? And if you do, what kind of things are you doing?
I'm also a big fan of it because I do believe that starting your day with certain steps, a routine, as we call it, routine has such a bad rap, but it could also be good because if you start your day with certain scheduled tasks that you like doing, that first 10 minutes to an hour of your day can set you up in such a good mood to continue your day. I do have morning routines because they vary during seasons, so depending on what my goal is. Like if I'm on a period where I'm trying to lose weight, it will probably have some fasted weightlifting. But in general, the majority of the time, what it includes is a short practice of meditation, and you can use an app like Calm or Headspace to practice that. Because I believe that we have so many things going on in our heads, especially we have so many stimuli through the internet and having a phone in our hands all the time, that it's good to practice stillness and presence as a skill. Your mind is a muscle. You should practice this part of the muscle that doesn't need to think of something and process something 100% of the time. So meditation would be one thing. The other thing that I've been doing for a few months and I'm very excited about is the Wim Hof method. So that includes cold showers and cold immersion as well, but a big part of it is breathing. There is an app for that. There is a book for that. If you Google Wim Hof method, you can find details. I find the app very useful because there are videos and you can follow through with Wim. So it's very good to have him breathing there with you. And I find that if I do the breathing exercises for a long period of time, it's nearly a psychedelic experience. You literally get high on your own supply, as they say on the site as well. Like you get high on oxygen because your body gets very oxygenated, you get saturated with oxygen. And when you start your day with such a powerful practice, it sets you up in a good mood after. And then I would probably say the thing that never changes is I always start the day with some sort of music. Like I like the songs that I listen in the morning vary, but I always listen to a couple of songs when I wake up because I feel it sets me up in a really good mood because, I mean, music triggers emotion. So having a song that makes you feel excited about the day and, you know, relaxed maybe at the same time is great. So generally, when I wake up, in general, it would be like a few minutes of meditation, a few minutes of breath work, and then while I'm getting dressed and, you know, washing my face, brushing my teeth, I set up the speaker, play a couple of uplifting songs. When I find the new one, it will be probably the new song on repeat for a couple of weeks. I believe it sets me off to a great start. I really miss it if I stop listening to music in the morning. I think it's an important part. Or you can listen to motivational videos in the morning. Like I also do that sometimes. A big part of my university life went with Eric Thomas on morning routines because
same dude, yeah.
He's very pumped. Like it's impossible not to wake up when you hear Eric Thomas in the morning. And I would watch the same video again and again with the headphones on because he's yelling and I didn't want to bother my flatmate. But yeah, motivational video instead of a song or along with the songs is a great start, because I believe how you start the day is pretty much a precursor of how the day is gonna go. And also a big thing that I did that I believe affected me is changing my alarm. A lot of people have annoying loud alarms because they believe they cannot wake up otherwise, and they have like siren sounds that they want to break their phone or alarm when they wake up. I believe that starts you off, you know, a bit agitated. So what I do is I have my phone on the other side of the room so that I need to get up to close it. So I make sure that I'm not sleeping, because, you know, if it's nearby, you can just switch it off. It's done. So I have it away from me, but I choose a very nice, calm instrumental song for an alarm. And then I wake up the day, I wake up and start the day a bit more calmly. You know, I have the song as my alarm, so I'm not running to close it because it's bothering me. I hear that music in my sleep, I wake up, I slowly go towards my phone on the other side of the room, and maybe I switch it off, or maybe I'll leave it play for a couple of more minutes because it's a nice chilling sound, you know. You don't need to wake up with nerves and feeling like you need to hammer your alarm. Also, that depends on what you have to do throughout the day, I believe.
Certainly. Dude, like those morning routines you just mentioned, we are more on the same headspace than I thought, so I'm happy to hear that. Like I do the same things, and also gratitude is one big for me, and
Yes.
I believe that everyone should do it. But I'm going to try the one that you say with changing the alarm clock. That's something that I've never done before. Actually, right now I have Gary V saying, get your fucking ass up. This is Gary V. It's time to go and conquer your day, which basically pumps me up.
Yeah.
But I will try like make something like instrumental there.
There is also an alarm clock app by The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, where he has several alarms, and one is a calm acoustic guitar where The Rock actually tells you, good morning, sunshine. And like that's such a funny and chilled sound to wake up. And I like The Rock. He's a chilled person in general.
Yeah.
He's such a nice character from what I see. So that was a fun alarm as well.
Okay.
And yeah, gratitude is definitely a thing. I mean, I have sometimes practiced gratitude through the 5-minute journal.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you don't actually write it down, which I do believe that it's good to write it down, but even if you don't, just, as I said, we grew up soft in general. So having a look around and actually appreciating what we have, like you got up from a warm bed, you probably have a duvet while it's cold outside.
Yeah.
I live with my fiancée, so I'm very glad that I have a loving partner sleeping next to me. I get up, I'm more of a morning person than she is. So I wake up, I see her sleeping, I say, I'm so glad that she's here. You know, like a few years ago, she wasn't there. Now my life is more complete. And then looking outside my house, I'm in a peaceful neighborhood. the weather is probably nice, and even if it's not, it's okay. You can find things to do in bad weather as well.
Yeah.
You have your fridge is full of food.
Or if it's not, you can do prolonged fasting.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably helpful to have it empty when you do that. But it's true. We grow up. If you grow up like in an era that has been like a very, very sort of prosperity era for your country, it's a great thing from one side, but you also need to practice gratitude or like stoic exercises to really understand that it's not for granted. I mean, you wake up healthy, but some people are not.
Yeah.
But so some people may find that depressing to think that way. But I consider myself lucky for having what I have, not the other people unlucky for not having what they have. So I'm not waking up feeling sorry for the entire world, because I cannot help 7 billion people simultaneously. I can start with fixing myself, helping myself, and then you can help more people. And gratitude is definitely a way to go on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree. It changed your perspective to everything.
I found it, I don't know if you did, but I found it challenging to find things to be glad for after a few days.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying as well. Yeah. Because on the first days, you're just saying like the classic stuff, like the usual. I'm happy, I'm grateful for my duvet, yeah, for my bed, for my house, for
breakfast if you're not fasting.
I'm fasting. But after a while you go deeper, and that's, I think, is when magic happens, because then you start realizing that, for example, I live in UK. In one day, I remember, like, it was like after 2 weeks, I've been doing gratitude journaling, and I wrote down, I'm grateful for the rain because it keeps, nature fed and gives water, and etc., etc., etc. And then I was like, dude, you would never be grateful for the rain in UK since you are Greek. You are supposed to hate rain. But yeah, like, it goes super deep and it reveals so many things. So
you do go deeper.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But then you may find that you find it exciting that a bird sits on your window in the morning, and you should be. But we get easily used to things, and we take things for granted. So it's good to practice things like that.
100%. All right. So many information actually on this video. I'm looking forward to rewatch it so I can add timestamps to what we discussed, so that the people that will check the video will be easier for them to also check what has been said. Ilias, thank you so much for your time. And
thank you for having me, for the invitation.
It's my pleasure. For the people that are interested to learn more about you, about your work, where can they find more, and where they can connect with you or send you a message if they want to?
The first source that I would say is my website, which is www.herbalscientist.net. So I have the articles there. I have my contact info there, so you can email me if you have further questions as well. My Instagram is @IliasGram, M. Or if you write Herbal Scientist on Instagram, you'll also find me like that. And also my Facebook page, Herbal Scientist, where I also share articles from other scientists that I find very interesting. So that's the major sources, and people are free to email me all the time, because I do respond as fast as I can. Because I do have a busy schedule, but I do like to respond to people, because you can start very interesting conversation with like-minded people who will enter your website, have a question, and then they may actually have insight on something that you were wondering about. So I do like to interact. People should feel free to email me or DM me on Instagram. And that's the major things.
Cool. Totally recommend you guys checking Ilias' website and Instagram as well.